This episode unfolds Wildcat's secret when Black Canary sees him in a pay-per-view fight. Black Canary is on patrol on smuggled firearms transported by a container van. She radios Wildcat to ask his whereabouts as he isn't there to help as they had agreed. When Wildcat says he'll be there in a few minutes, Black Canary cannot wait any longer and decides to fight the criminals alone. A brawl ensues, and the criminals try to flee. She lets out her fighting ability, Canary Cry, and their getaway car breaks down, easily defeating them. After the fight, a broadcast of the Meta Brawl fight plays on the criminal's laptop. Black Canary sees Wildcat pronounce the winner. Her face shows how surprised she is. Later on, Black Canary comes into the training room where Green Arrow practices. She invites him to spar and makes him think she is not fit to fight. She then tricks him into helping her with something the League must not know. In the motorcycle ride, Black Canary reveals that Wildcat, a former world heavyweight champ, participates in Meta Brawls, an illegal underground fight for metahumans. She wants Green Arrow to help get Wildcat out of the brawl. Meanwhile, Wildcat expresses his decision to quit, but Roulette deceives him into thinking he is too weak for the League. The two purchase tickets from a scalper to gain access to the fight. They sneak backstage and try to convince Wildcat to tap out. Wildcat refuses and lets out his frustration about not having any kind of superpowers. He shows his insecurity about being given low-profile missions by the League. He would rather stay and fight. Green Arrow considers himself out as he thinks Black Canary and Wildcat have a romantic relationship. She explains Wildcat is like a father to her as he is the one who trained her and some of the League members to fight. She only wants to save him from getting kicked out of the League or worse. Green Arrow finally learns the truth and agrees to help again. In the middle of the fight between Wildcat and Atomic Skull, Black Canary and Green Arrow intervene. Green Arrow stops Wildcat by launching an arrow to restrain his hand. The guards stop them, and when they can't, the other villain fighters step in to confront the two heroes, but Wildcat stops their advance. Wildcat steps aside and allows the villains to attack when Black Canary asks him which side he is on. Black Canary offers to fight Wildcat herself in exchange for banning Wildcat from the fight forever. Roulette agrees and declares the main event to the cheering crowd. They proceed to the dressing room where Roulette convinces Wildcat to fight Black Canary as he trained her himself. He refuses to, saying he can't stand against his student. Rowlett threatens to ban him on Meta Brawl if he loses or goes easy on the fight. Wildcat punches the wall out of anger. In Black Canary's dressing room, Green Arrow and Canary talk about the upcoming fight. Canary says she will not use her powers on Wildcat as she believes he will return to the brawl again, even after losing. Green Arrow expresses his doubts about Canary's intentions and tells her that she may be faking it, like what happened in the Watchtower. He asks her to look him in the eyes and tell him the truth. When Canary is close enough, Green Arrow releases a sleeping gas from one of his arrows, bringing her to sleep. Roulette comes to inform them of the fight, but sees the sleeping Canary. Green Arrow reassures her she will get her main event. At the arena, Roulette announces a change of plan for the main fight. Wildcat will be facing Green Arrow instead. Confused, Wildcat denies fighting Green Arrow as he is not a fighter like Black Canary. Roulette insists on the sake of money. Green Arrow taunts that maybe Wildcat only wants to fight a woman. Provoked, Wildcat charges and lands a punch on Green Arrow. Meanwhile, Black Canary wakes up and heads toward the arena where she sees Green Arrow getting slammed to the fences. Black Canary tries to enter the cage to no avail. Canary's pleas do not work on Wildcat. He continues to strike the overmatched Green Arrow. The cheers of the crowd follow every punch Wildcat delivers back and forth. Green Arrow continues insulting Wildcat, who finally gives him a fatal blow that renders him unconscious. Asking if Green Arrow has finally had enough, Wildcat flips him over and gets stunned when he discovers that Green Arrow has no pulse. The crowd cheers as Black Canary breaks in to confront Wildcat for what he has done. Roulette appears and proudly says that the brawl has come to a new level where the loser loses their life. Still shocked, Wildcat declares he will not fight anymore. The arena has cleared out, leaving only Black Canary and Green Arrow in the middle of the cage. Black Canary mourns the passing of Green Arrow. With tears falling from her eyes, Canary gives him a peck on the cheeks. It turns out that Green Arrow is alive and reveals that he only used a stun arrow to fake being deceased. Canary realizes his motive, to make Wildcat realize the power he holds and its effects on others. Wildcat appears and says Green Arrow's plan worked. As they leave, Roulette angrily says that Wildcat will still be back. Canary disagrees and goes into the middle of the cage to destroy the arena using the Canary Cry. Back to the Watchtower, Black Canary leads Wildcat to Jaeon's to make sure his thirst for the Meta Brawl will not come back. Green Arrow in a crutch and arm support invites Black Canary for some coffee, but she will pay. Although shocked, Canary smiles as she internally agrees with Green Arrow's invitation. On episode 2, the world's greatest escape artist practices his latest escape act in the middle of a train track. Scott-Free, also known as Mr. Miracle, is best at what he does, escaping. His wife, Big Barda, and their assistant, Oberon, are there to help in his rehearsal, although a little hesitant about his ability to escape this time. Oberon shackles both of his hands and feet and cages him in a thick sarcophagus. Later sprays a chemical to cover the sarcophagus with a block of ice. A military chopper flies above them and drops a train directly at him. Concerned that her husband failed to escape, Barda rushes into the debris to find Scott, who later appears unharmed. Scott escapes effortlessly, and Big Barda greets him with a hug. As they celebrate the moment, Oberon suddenly vanishes. Granny Goodness appears from the dust and reveals she has taken Oberon as her hostage. They will need to follow her orders to keep him alive. Granny Goodness wants Scott to break into the X-Pit and rescue Calibac, Darkseid's son. X-Pit is Apocalypse's impenetrable prison from which Scott was able to escape when he was a young boy and remains the only one who can do so. She explains that due to Darkseid's disappearance, a power struggle between herself and Wunderbar, one of Darkseid's highest-ranking lieutenants. Wunderbar captured Calibac to brainwash him and legitimize his claim to the throne. Now, she wants him for herself for the same purpose. Scott has no choice but to obey in exchange for Oberon's safety. In the League's watchtower, Elongated Man and Flash are playing Brawl and Bots when Scott and Barda arrive to ask the Justice League for Superman's help. However, Superman is on a mission deep in space. Jaons also refuses and says that the League cannot assist a dictator in controlling Apocalypse, as she might end up conquering Earth. Like Darkseid, the former tyrannical Lord of Apocalypse did. Not getting the help they need, Barda storms out of the room, and Scott calmly follows. Flash, who has been listening to them, disapproves of Jaons' judgment. The latter says that the lives of billions of people will be at stake if they help three. Scott and Barda are about to leave the tower when Flash catches up and offers his help. Barda declines and says they only need the aid of Superman. Flash explains what help he can offer by showing them how fast he can be. Scott accepts Flash's help and says that he can be of some use to them. Using a boom tube, the three travel to Apocalypse. Flash complains that they should have been transported near the X-Pit, but Scott explains that Wunderbar's technology blocks any time-space field of the tubes, which also prevents them from rescuing Calibac using the tube. Wunderbar's troops of armed men and hounds appear to attack them. The three heroes easily defeat and leave each and every one of them lying on the ground. They enter the pit and Scott squints his eyes, realizing that the layout is now completely different from what he can remember. With a sudden flash of his childhood memory, Scott calls off the plan and insists on going alone. But Flash and Big Barda insist. Meanwhile, Wunderbar entertains himself by watching them through a monitor. He laughs as he believes to know the outcome of their escape. Flash searches the entire pit for Calibac while Scott and Barda deal with the robotic prison guards. He eventually finds Calibac restrained in one of the cells and releases him. Although the League is one of Calibac's enemies, he decides to join forces with them in the meantime, and says that his enemy's enemy is a friend. As they make their way out, the scene changes to the young Scott, who always fails in his attempt to escape the pit and evade Granny's tortures as a punishment. He remembered how many times Granny tries to snatch his hope and break his spirit for him to give up like all the other children. With their combined powers and teamwork, the four continue to find their way out when one of the doors locked behind them and traps Scott inside with water filling up the room fast. The floor in the other room opens and drops the three into a bottomless shaft. A pair of arrow discs allows Barda to levitate and save the two from falling. On one of the wall's fissures is Scott, who successfully escaped the water room. They reach the bottom of the pit. It is a shortcut to the exit but is armed with laser shooting guns and fire fences. Luckily, this is not a concerning matter to them. Scott mounts the arrow discs, avoiding every laser shot, and destroys the guns with ease. Flash rapidly spins like a tornado, which destroys the fire fence. He crashes onto the wall, creating a passage. Near the exit, an army of prison guards greets them. The guards charge and attack, but their strength is no match to Calibac and Barda, who throw them like stones and pound them to pieces. Seeing this, Wunderbar triggers the pit's self-destruct feature and escapes with a space car. The pit then explodes upon reaching the countdown. After the explosion, Granny examines the ruins of the pit when a boom tube suddenly opens. Scott, Barda, Calibac, and Flash come out. Although Granny congratulates Scott for delivering Calibac to her, she spitefully says the punishment she's going to inflict on Oberon for being rude to her. As Flash has predicted Granny's actions, Calibac transforms into Jaons and reads the shocked Granny's mind for Oberon's whereabouts, Darkseid's old palace. He guides Flash into the cell and Flash saves Oberon just in time before the giant blades cut Oberon up. When Oberon's rescue was confirmed, Barda furiously aims to hit Granny with her mega rod. Jaon stops her and says that the power struggle must continue in Apocalypse to save Earth from a possible threat. Oberon reunites with Scott and Barda. Scott opens a boom tube to leave the planet. Granny was left in a state of shock and questions herself about her failure to break Scott, as she is always successful in breaking the children that come to her care. Before running into the boom tube, Barda punches Granny right in her face, knocking her down. At the watchtower, Jaeon requests Flash's presence, but before he can speak, Flash abruptly defends himself and says that although he disobeyed the order, everything worked out just fine. Caliban is now imprisoned on Earth where both Granny and Wunderbar cannot use him for their advances. Jaeon smiles and says he just wants to play brawlin' bots with Flash. Flash happily accepts the challenge and took off taking the green bot. Jaeon follows saying he wants that one too.